She was the raw, raging voice of 1960s rock, dazzling with her soulful swagger on stage. But behind her hard-partying image, Janis Joplin led a secret life that only emerged after her sudden demise. Join Factsverse as we re-examine the iconic singer's final days through the eyes of the woman who knew her best. Joplin's hidden romances. Janis Joplin cultivated an image as a freewheeling, sexually liberated singer during the late 60s hippie era. She was romantically linked to many famous male musicians and artists in the media, playing into perceptions of her as the ultimate free-spirited rock muse. But unbeknownst to the public at the time, she also engaged in secret same-sex relationships that only emerged years after her death. In 1966, shortly after joining Big Brother and the Holding Company, Joplin met a captivating young woman named Peggy Caserta at a San Francisco nightclub. Details are scarce, but most accounts indicate the two felt an instant, electric attraction that night. Caserta later characterized it as love at first sight. Though Joplin was just beginning her singing career, she and Caserta plunged into an intense, romantic, and sexual affair. During this era of exploration in Haight-Ashbury, it seemed anything was possible. Caserta published memoirs decades later chronicling her relationship with Joplin during this creatively fertile period. She describes long nights holed up in apartments, listening to records, and tender mornings waking up together. Outwardly, Joplin dated men to avoid public speculation and judgment, but privately, she found an emotional, intimate connection with Caserta that inspired her music. For two nonconformist women, it felt liberating to love freely behind closed doors. However, the outside world posed challenges for Joplin's clandestine relationship. As she skyrocketed to fame, her managers and promoters worked hard to sell a heterosexual, hyper-feminine image to audiences. Revelations of lesbian dalliances could have severely damaged her budding career. The 60s counterculture preached openness, but mainstream culture still vilified homosexuality. Joplin herself also harbored internalized stigma and shame about same-sex relationships, given her traditional Texan upbringing. Her parents likely would have reacted negatively to the news. While she embraced the hippie ethos of loving whoever you wanted, old habits and fears died hard. For all these reasons, Joplin concealed her affair from the public eye. Tragically, her untimely death at age 27 prevented the full truth from emerging during her lifetime. Only decades later, through memoirs and interviews, did Caserta bravely reconstruct a side of Joplin she herself struggled to acknowledge. The Fateful Night. The circumstances surrounding Janis Joplin's untimely death at age 27 have long been shrouded in mystery. In the early hours of October 4th, 1970, Joplin was found deceased in her room at the Landmark Hotel in Hollywood. The official cause was determined to be a heroin overdose. However, Joplin's secret girlfriend Peggy has stepped forward over the years to offer a very different account of that tragic night. According to Caserta, she and Joplin had made plans to meet up at the Landmark Hotel, along with a mutual male friend. However, Caserta decided not to go and assumed Joplin would connect with their male companion instead. Tragically, he failed to show up as well, leaving Joplin alone. Caserta contends that Joplin did not die of a deliberate heroin overdose that night. Rather, she believes Joplin accidentally tripped and fell, fatally injuring herself. Caserta theorizes that Joplin's shoe heel got caught in the shag carpeting of her hotel room, causing her to trip and hit her head on a nightstand. Reportedly, Caserta saw Joplin's body, and the positioning did not seem consistent with an overdose. Joplin was found lying straight on the floor rather than slumped over, as is typical. Caserta also highlights the fact that Joplin had left her room shortly before, presumably to buy cigarettes in the lobby. To her, this suggests Joplin was not on the verge of overdosing. Of course, the heroin and other substances in Joplin's system likely contributed to her accidental fall becoming lethal. But knowing she did not intentionally overdose seems to bring Caserta some sense of comfort and closure. For years, she faced blame and accusations of enabling Joplin's addiction and drug use on that final night. While the exact circumstances may never be fully known, Caserta feels strongly that Joplin's passing was a freak accident rather than deliberate overdose. By speaking out, she aims to set the record straight and clear her own name after decades of speculation. Regardless of the details, though, the world lost a singular talent when Janis Joplin's life was cut far too short that fateful October night. The aftermath. Fans grieved the loss of the iconic singer just as she reached global stardom. But in the turbulent days and years after her demise, Joplin's secret girlfriend, Peggy Caserta, found herself blamed for the tragedy that many felt she should have prevented. Still reeling from the devastating loss herself, Caserta would face serious accusations from Joplin's inner circle. According to Peggy's accounts, she faced immediate insinuations of blame from Joplin's inner circle for enabling the addiction. As Joplin's clandestine gay lover who shared her drug habits, Peggy made an easy scapegoat after the tragedy. Caserta says band members, roadies, and managers pointed the finger, wanting to deflect from their own role in Joplin's reckless lifestyle. In 1973, Caserta published a memoir graphically detailing their lesbian relationship, which stoked further outrage. Critics painted Caserta as an opportunist exploiting Joplin's legacy for shock value and profit. She was accused of smearing Joplin's name by framing her as gay when she could not defend herself. Caserta later disavowed the book, claiming it was largely fabricated without her input, but the damage was done. She was branded a liar just trying to cash in. For decades afterwards, Caserta stayed silent, fearing further attacks on her credibility over Joplin's death. But in recent years, she's courageously shared her side of the story again in a bid to reclaim her voice. While maintaining she did not introduce Joplin to heroin or cause her demise, Caserta does admit to enabling her ex-lover's addiction through their shared drug use. She also acknowledges the complexity in claiming Joplin's gay identity after the fact. Caserta says she continues speaking out to correct the record and achieve some sense of closure after being made the villain following Joplin's untimely end. She hopes fans and critics alike can learn to see her as a flawed human being mourning the loss of a soulmate, not some predatory caricature. For Caserta and many others, coming to terms with losing Joplin so abruptly at the height of her powers remains an ongoing process. Joplin's enduring legacy. Though her life was cut short at age 27, Janis Joplin's musical legacy has resonated for over 5 decades. Her final album, Pearl, was released posthumously in 1971 and became her biggest commercial success. Hits like Me and Bobby McGee showcased her bluesy vocals and soulful style, achieving huge pop crossover appeal. She paved the way for future generations of female rock singers to belt with power and bravado. Her raw, unbridled delivery inspired everyone from Stevie Nicks to Pink. Her fusion of psychedelic rock with R&B and blues created a wholly unique sound. She also served as an icon of 1960s counterculture with her funky hippie fashion and rebellious public persona. Now it's time to hear from you. Were you surprised to find out about her secret gay life? Let us know in the comments section below.